So I want to say thank you to the Great Lakes Texas Longhorn Association for letting Andrew with Big Iron Podcast, Mike Reinhardt with Why My Cattle Company, and myself, Johnny Hicks, to kind of explain what we've been working on the last couple of years. In the Texas Longhorn industry, there's not a lot of information out there for new breeders to kind of know how to pick cattle, know what genetics cause what things. So we put a program together called Breeders of Excellence, and it's a scoring system. Mike's going to walk us through the scoring system of how it works, and then we'll go into how it benefits new breeders and how to read it. And uh, the problem with our industry is if somebody points out a flaw, people get upset because they think that means cull your cow. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. In order to breed or line breed, you need to know what the positive traits are and the negative traits so you know what bull that you use to correct them. And so we need to get rid of this, that if I say, I don't like the feed on that heifer, that doesn't mean I don't like your heifer. That means we need to pick a bull to fix that, but that can still be an excellent heifer. I mean, a great heifer. And no animal's perfect, but in order to improve the breed and improve your profitability, then you need to know where to fix the flaws to make you more profitable and how to do that. And I think this presentation will really help with that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Reinhardt.
All right. For those of you who don't know, my name's Mike Reinhardt. I was originally in New York, just recently in Northwest Alabama. And, we've had hauls, been in the Longhorn world. But before that, I spent 40 years in the dairy world, dairy cattle, show cattle. Traveled all over the country, on shows, did all that. So one of the things when I first came into the Longhorn world that was interesting to me is being used to that world, the lack of actual information on pedigrees and just looking at cattle. For experienced guys like, maybe Tom and Mark Hubble, those guys, they've had this for generations. They're able to, be able to look at these. For new breeders, some of you, the first time you've owned cattle was owning Texas Longhorns, right? So what do I look at or what is confirmation? We see that word thrown around all the time. You get on a Facebook post, somebody will say, hey, this heifer's got color horn confirmation. What does that really mean, right? And what are you really looking at when you're looking at heifers or cows or animals in your program? So a balanced cow, there's functional traits to it, okay? I look at animals probably way different than most people do because I'm looking at all of these components. So we created, which we had in the dairy world, we modified, been working on it for a couple of years with Johnny and different things, a system that actually will put a confirmation score on a cow. Now, that doesn't mean it's a permanent thing for that cow. She could get more points, she could do whatever, but it gives you a basis of where to start. What's good about that animal? What's not so good about that animal? As Johnny said, I don't believe there's a perfect animal, and I don't believe there's a perfect bull. There's always something you say, yeah, just a little bit better, right? But what is that? How do we quantify that? We're all chasing this animal, and there's no quantifying factors to it, And I'm not saying there aren't variations in animals, because, Greg, you may value rump characteristics more than Johnny does, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But how do we quantify those things? So why does it matter? Why is confirmation a big deal? Very simply, confirmation is the foundation of longevity in cattle. A poorly put together cow will not last. Longhorns have been designed originally, to calve till they're 20 years old. How many times are we seeing animals now that 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and they're out of the herd, right? So if we can improve longevity, you can improve profitability, mobility. They have to work, fertility, calving ease, calf raising ability. Some of you would call that milkability, right? If a cow can't raise a calf, how good is she? Now, I want to preface this by saying this is, in my opinion, there's different categories of people. If you're breeding for futurity heifers to chase the futurity trend of the moment, this may not make a whole lot of sense to you. If you're breeding for productive cows that are going to produce calves for a number of years, then this is really going to make sense to you. I learned a long time ago in business If you're chasing a trend, you're better off setting the trend. If you're chasing the trend, you're never going to get it. If you find a stock that's doing really well, all the money's been made, right? So you want to create a trend, but a long-lasting trend. Does that make sense? So we're going to go through it's a scoring system, and how this works is an evaluation of cattle and what they actually are good at and what they're not. This system is composed of 5 different subcategories. We have strength and substance, breed characteristics, rump, mobility, and memory system. Okay? These are all very critical components of what a longhorn should be. Within that, there's 34 different subcategories. You guys are typically looking at a cow, and maybe you're new. Well, I like the horn. I like the color. Yeah, she's this wide, or maybe she's. But then our minds automatically go to what we like, and they automatically shield us from what we don't really care about. Does that make sense? So we want to go through and look at this really quickly. So we're going to pull this up and talk about these categories and kind of give scores. I'm going to show you guys how this works, and we may have some pictures and stuff to go with it. But so anyway, if I'm entering a cow, cow's name goes in, registration. We have a system that keeps track of this, a database, date of birth. We got a sire, Johnny Be Good here. Dan, Missy says it's impossible. Number of times calved, that's important. Longevity is due to calving. I want to know how many times this cow's calved, so you can hit that submit button. So literally this will pop up, and I'm starting to look at traits in a cow individually. Individual traits compose the whole cow. So when we're talking about chest, adequate width and spacing between the front legs. A lot of people don't realize if I'm looking at a cow front on, I think you have a picture, but if her front feet are doing this, she lacks strength. I want 2 feet of space. So you look at these 2 cows, these are a perfect example. That cow has strength, capacity. That cow is going to be more resistant to disease. She's going to be more resistant to calving problems. She's going to hold up better than a frail cow who looks like this. They don't have the strength in the front end, okay? So if we flip back to it, these scoring systems work on a scale of 0 to 50. 25 is average. I have an average cow, she'd be a 25. If we were looking at that cow on the left, she's probably more like a 45. You know, she's boom. So that would go in there. So you can throw that in there. Heart girth. Deep and well-sprung forest, spreading the shoulder. So what we're talking about there is if I'm looking at the point of the shoulder to her body right behind her front legs, what does that look like? I want depth. I don't want 2 feet of space. I want 3 feet. That adds to that capacity. So, you know, in that cow, you know, maybe she was, we're just making up scores here because I want you guys to see how the system works. Let's say she was a 30. She's above average, right? Bone mass, strong without coarseness. So when you're looking at a cow, you can have different styles of bones. Most people don't realize this. If I have a cow with round bones, she's going to be coarse. Typically, that means less milking ability. She's round boned. She may carry flesh better. She's not going to do those, but they can be strong, but not coarse. Her hocks would be puffier. You know, you would notice that. A feminine cow would be very clean boned. You can almost, you know, you can see the bones are flat. They're clean. I don't want a frail bone, though. I got to have enough substance there. Does that make sense? So let's put that at a 25. Muzzle, broad, large open nostrils, and strong jaw. These are why there's on there. A muzzle on a cow actually has a lot to do with functionality. The broader the muzzle, the bigger the nostrils, the better the feed efficiency, the more intake of that animal, the better milk producing usually. So I don't want a pinch tight nose with very slit nostrils. Those longhorns were designed to go across long distances for multiple. They had to have capacity to breathe, capacity to eat. In the dairy world, that muzzle converts to feed to milk, excuse me. We're always looking for that. So you can put a number in there. Shoulders, what we're talking about. So when you start to break these individual components down or actually looking at a cow, this is what you'll see what happens here. Shoulder blades. When you're looking at the shoulder blades from behind, the front shoulders, are they tight to the cow or are they chicken winged? If they're chicken winged, that cow's going to break down over time. I want a nice tight shoulder. There shouldn't be, this gap back here. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? So that's something we look at. Hey, this component, put a 25, whatever in there. Crops are right behind the shoulder blade. It's where the shoulder blade comes to meet in the back. If I have a weak crop cow, it'll almost look like, Andrew had the perfect analogy yesterday. Anybody here had a Chevy truck, an older Chevy, and what happens is you pick up, it looks like this after a while in the rust. So that's a cow with a weak crop. They've got, it looks like two cows were stuck together, but somebody didn't line them up right. Okay? So, you can give her a 30. And then the volumetric size of a cow is very simply, is her capacity in what she can contain, does it fit? Is she a long tubular? Does she look like a water bottle, right? With legs, or a hot dog with legs. That's not really what we were looking for. So does that volume make sense? And capacity of a cow. Capacity of a cow is the intake of feed, which creates the milk, which creates all of these things. I'm not saying, now be very careful here, because some people will say, well, that's a big cow. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm from the dairy world. I milked Holsteins and Swiss. My neighbor milked Jerseys. Jerseys are half the size of a Holstein or Swiss, basically, or 2/3. But I could say, that's a good cow. That cow's got capacity because she's got ribs. She's got all of these things, the body depth. So it's not about size. It's about how the body's structured. Just throw something in there. Doesn't really matter. So all of a sudden, I take all of these components and they make up different pieces. And it tells me this cow is 85 points in substance and strength. So what does that mean? We flip this one if you guys can read this. 85 would be very good. 80 is an average cow. My cow's 80 points in strength and substance. She's average. If she's 85, she is above average. Okay? So she would be very good in strength and substance. Excellent would be 90. She gets up to 90 points. She's what we would call an excellent cow in that category. Poor would be 65 to 69. This is the biggest problem in this animal, probably, if she's down here, right? Fair, 70, 74. So I'm looking for cows that are in that good and up. I'm not saying this cow's bad, but there's the major flaw in that cow, right? And you'll see what happens because she may be bad in one area and great in another. The overall score of that cow, you can have two different cows that look totally different but have the same score because of the different components. Does that make sense? So let's go to the next category quick. We're just going to hammer through these real quick. Well, I want you to, back up 1 second. Can you? So watch what, no, I'm going to submit. Watch what happens. Remember this score down here. It's 85.38. Go up a couple and make that 25 a 40. Now what happened to that score? She's an 87.56. So these are all calculated in there, okay? Next. Let's go. So now we're going to do this. Ribs, well sprung, not slab-sided. This is the category. So ribs on a cow, if you're looking behind the cow, she should have some rib to her. She should be wider at the rib than she is in the rear. If she's slab-sided, I think you used the example. Let Johnny do it.
Oh. Yeah, so the easiest analogy I can have for this is a slab-sided cow. If you look at the backbones of the ribs, looks like this. Mm-hmm. A good spring of rib, if you look at them, they'll look like this.
Yeah, but it's probably more like this because they're
they're going to be tapered. But just you can see that if they're too much like this, usually that means your ribs are vertical, up and down with no slant. So you still want a little slant, so they won't be like 90 degrees out and then down like a square. But just to give you, you know, slab sided's like this, you're going to be more like that for a
Right.
spring of rib.
And then a typical rib, a good spring of rib, if you actually look at the ribs on the cow, they angle backwards. Why is that? Why is this important? One, increases capacity 2 ways. One for eating, the other is for breathing. If a cow's running and has spring of rib, her chest can expand, she can move. Feed conversion is way better. Those types of things. So we look at that. Disposition. So these are breed characteristics. Disposition. Is she calm, easygoing? You know, one of the highest things in the Longhorn is she gentle, right? If you go out there and she's trying to kill you, then you probably want to know about that, you know? So that could affect the score. So you can just throw something in there. Overall style, strength, balance. Does the cow look like a cow's supposed to, or does she look like 4 cows that are put together? That's really what you're looking at. Pole, we understand that. Should be a flat pole. Shouldn't look like a Watusi pole. You know, V-shaped upward. So these are all breed characteristics that we talk about in the Longhorn breed, but nobody ever quantifies. Is her brisket clean? You know, we all have heifers that you wish had less throat to them, brisket, right? It's not the end of the world if she has brisket, but it's going to affect us a little bit, and we can quantify that, right? What do we got? Horn length. Adequate horn, you know? Is the base smooth? Do we have bulbous horns? Do we have those types of things? So these are things I see repeated over and over on Facebook that either people like, not like, don't like, or they accept. Again, it doesn't matter, but we can quantify this stuff. Navels. Some people, navels drive them crazy. They want the smooth navel. I'm a little different. You know, I say half the human race is outies, half are innies. You know, I don't want Brahma navel, but if there's a little bit, I might be okay with it. Josh might not be. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can see it, right? Ears, are they rounded, or do we have, you know, Brahma ears hanging down on a cow? So these are just things that we're looking at. Again, we got an 85 here, right? So skip that, go to the next. Now we're looking at rump structure. Tail head, slightly above and neatly between the pin bones. Is it free from coarseness? If you have a tail head and there's all these like pockets of coarse hair, fat, and whatever, that's not good. Is it set where it's supposed to be? Coarseness, big wad of tail at the top versus, you know, knee. Again, if she's got a bad tail set, doesn't mean she's a bad cow. She could be very good in some of these other categories, but this is the thing I want to look at when I'm mating bulls and all that stuff. Rump pins, adequately spaced. So rump angle. This is a category I think some people misconstrue what rump angle is. Rump angle is the angle between the hooks, which is the big bone on the side of the cow. I think you got a picture of this, don't you? And the pin, which is the bone by the tail. That's your rump angle. So I'm talking about this bone and this bone. This bone and this bone. The tail can make a visual outline of the cow look level. Not too bad. But if I look at the actual bones of the cow, this cow's got a sloped rump. It's the way the tail's sitting that makes it look level from a profile picture. This cow's got great rump angle, slight slope down. Okay. Any questions on that? Well, we'll get to it.
Are you gonna go to the skull or the skeletal structure with that, or no? Yeah, or no?
I'll let you do that one if you want.
Well, you're right there.
Okay, go ahead to it.
It's right there.
Yeah. So this is it. So this is the cow that has that sloped rump, right? So even though this circle is the same, the capacity of the opening. So if that rump is structured correctly, the calf has the most room to come out of the birth canal with calving ease. If it's wrong, then what happens is the calf comes up and has to do a 45 back down. This is where we get into calving trouble. Okay? Does that make sense? So even though they could be exactly the same how that's positioned in the cow will affect that opening. All right, go back to my the vulva, nearly vertical. So one of the things I see in a lot of Longhorns that seems nobody even really looks at is what I call a recessed anus. So the tail head of the cow on the rump sits up here, and they're defecating on their vulva all the time. That's going to cause infertility issues. A bull's breeding, meaning it's going through manure before it ever gets to the cow, right? So that is not a good trait, and also will lead to prolapses typically down in the future, rectal prolapses, things like that. So we want that to be as vertical as possible. I mean, you're never going to, it'll be a little bit, but I don't want something. I've seen a cow one time, I think it was almost a foot, where the tail head was set up into the rear end of the cow, and there was this shelf back there that she's just collecting manure on. That's not a good trait. Back should be straight and strong, loin broad. So I want my loin, or the middle of my back, to have width to it, but I also want a straight top line. A straight top line makes the pelvis line up where it's supposed to be. And it should be nearly level. Now, I'm not talking about the tail set, I'm talking about between the hooks and the chines. A cow typically is going to walk downhill a little bit, so I'm not talking about, hey, this line looks like this when I'm looking at the cow. I'm saying it may look like this. It does not look like a U with a saddle. You guys understand what I'm talking about? Because if I'm weak loined, I'm putting pressure on my shoulders, I'm putting pressure on my hips. You know, you picture yourself walking around on your hands and knees with your back arched like this and keep doing that. How comfortable is that? How long can you do that, right? So in this case, this added up to 91.2. This cow's excellent in rump, right? Go one, let's jump one more. Movement, free and easy, so mobility. Mobility is crucial to grazing cows. And Longhorns are typically browsing cows. I mean, they eat some of the weirdest stuff I've ever seen compared to most cows. But they have to be able to move to do that. So if I'm moving and my joints are stiff, it's like us at 54 when we get out of bed, you know, it takes us a while to get going. I want easy, free movement. Can they get up and down easy? How many of you ever seen a cow? You used to see it in the dairy world all the time. Start to get up, get about halfway, and then she starts shaking while she gathered the rest of the strength to get up. You know, you don't see it in pasture cattle so much, but we want that easy, free movement going. Foot angle. So this is one a lot of people, I see Facebook posts all the time talking about feet. Good feet is different than long feet. Long toes can have two reasons. One is genetic, second is environmental. You know, if you're wet, mud, and there's nothing for those toes to break off of, you could have a good-footed heifer with long toes. And maybe you got to trim her once and she's good from then on because the environment changes. But this is what we're talking about. Here's a cow with good feet, steep foot angle, depth of heel. The back of her heel is up off the ground. Here's a cow with poorer feet. I believe, Johnny, these two heifers are the same age, same pen, right?
Same feed.
So, same feed. Hers, it's got a weak pastern in the front, lowered her heels almost touching the ground, so therefore her toes are just kind of growing out into space. Does that make sense? So we want to look at that. We want a tighter foot. Why are feet important? That cow can't walk, she isn't going to live, right? So here's another look at foot angle, different toe structures. You know, you see the splayed toes. Splayed toes are not great because that's just bigger chance for injury, that kind of thing. But yeah. Rear leg side view. So this is, if I'm looking at the side of the cow, I'm looking at her rear leg. There's two directions a leg can go. Well, 3 is correct. So in this category, 25 is ideal. I have the perfect angle. If my legs are too straight, I don't have that angle, that cow, it's like walking on 2x4s or no cartilage. You're going to break those legs down typically over time. Now, everything I'm saying, I want to clarify to you guys, is not 100% of the time. But if I'm going to the casino and laying money down and making this bet, I like my odds, right? Too much set, the cow, if you ever watch a cow walk, if I have too much set to the leg, usually that leg's thrown halfway up under her belly while she's walking, you know? that leg sitting here. Now I'm putting all the pressure on that hock joint to hold that cow up. Yeah. So your thurl is the area between here, here, and your stifle. That's your thurl. Okay. I want a long, wide thurl. Okay. Your stifle placement is what affects where the legs set. If I have a cow that's walking out here, usually the stifle is back here. In reality, that should almost make an equilateral triangle. Okay, that's spaced right. You can almost see it here. This cow here, her stifle is probably right there. It's sitting too far back. Where do her legs sit? They're way back here. So, but the thurl area is this. I want it wide and I want it long. I want width in there. If I have width, what do I have more room for? Calves, right? If that's tight, I have way less room. All right. Pasterns, we just talked about that on those front feet. That's above the hoof between the dew claw. Are they strong or are they weak? They should be short, strong, and flexible. Real long passions will have a tendency to break down over time. So this cow scores 82.5 in this category. Again, if we change those scores, that number will change. Mammary system. Again, coming from the dairy world, I'm probably more critical of this than anything, but what people consider an adequate, okay udder in the Longhorn world shocks me. Just from a longevity standpoint. So the udder is broken down into different components also. We have, first one is udder depth. A cow's udder, I don't care if she's 20 years old or if she's 3 years old, the cow udder should be above the hock. If her udder's below the hock and she's out in the wild, her teats are dragging through briars, everything, she's going to get stepped on, she's going to do that. So here's an older cow, her udder's still above the hock. That's the depth we're talking about, okay? You can see it here. Fore udder, so back to that fore udder picture, I guess. I didn't mean to, you were ahead of me, rear udder. Fore udder, where the front of the udder connects to the body. I want a smooth, long fore udder. If it's coming in nice and smooth, I have more attachment to that. I also have more capacity in the udder. If you look at this udder, it's chopped off. That ligament's free swinging in there. Over time, typically that udder is going to keep going down because the attachment's not great. This cow's got a much better attachment, which is a little bit tighter. She's not perfect by any means, but it's way better than this one here. What was the next one? Rear udder height? I can't remember. Rear udder, high, wide, firmly attached. If you're looking at the back of a cow and the udder and it looks like a pear, that's not good. It's going to break down over time. I want the attachment on the back of the cow to be the width of the udder. That's where it's ideal. Again, if they're not, I'm not saying it's go beef the cow. I'm saying this is the trait that you want to fix. I also want it high. Rear udder attachment height is where does the udder attach to the body compared to the vulva. The higher that is, the longer that udder is going to last, guaranteed, because that ligament's attached to much more of the cow. So you just got to be careful there. Again, we're not creating dairy cows here. We're not trying to make a cow give 100 pounds of milk, but I can show you multiple pictures of cows that are in their teens with nice, high, tight udders, right? But for some reason, there's a misconception. The bigger the udder, the more milk a cow makes. That is not true. It just means the more meat they're carrying in that udder. Milking dairy cows, I could take a cow with a small square udder and give 20% more than a cow with a big udder. There was just less tissue in that udder. Teeth, so nice, so I can't even say the word. You guys can read it. Uniform size with medium length. I don't want a real long teat. Too much chance for injury, right? I don't want a fat teat. It's hard for a calf to get that into her mouth. She might do it this year, but who's going to the casino laying $100 down that 5 years from now, that calf will be able to suck, right? So I want cylindrical teats. I want length. I want a good teat that even at an advanced age, a calf can nurse on. Now, I'm not saying that a cow's udder won't get progressively a little deeper, maybe the teat's a little longer over time, we take account into that. You know, a 15-year-old cow should not have the same udder typically, or it typically is not going to have the same udder as a 3-year-old cow. But I don't want this, you know? So here's a cow at a young age that looked like this. Here's what she looked like when she got older. I would be able to look at that right away because I've been around cattle all my life. So that's what that's going to turn into. Again, 100%, would I have known that? No, but odds are that's what's going to happen. And I think you'll talk about this, right?
Touch on how that's heritable.
Yeah.
That's a grand.
This is the grand dam of this cow. This is this cow at what, 2 years, 3 years old? 3-year-old. What do we see? Udder is actually the most heritable trait in a cow. What that means is the impact from one generation to another is fast. You can improve an udder tremendously, or you can go the other way very quickly. Udders are very heritable. Udder cleft is the line in the back of the udder. I want a good seam in the back of the udder. I want to see that ligament. If that's flat, that means that ligament is very weak. Over time, that's going to come down. And balance and texture. I want a level udder. Over time, that might tip a little bit. The udder floor is level, typically, especially in a younger cow. Udder balance texture. It's level from the side. The quarters should be even. You shouldn't have lopsidedness. You want soft and pliable udders. If the udder looks like a dish rag when they're a dry cow or they're milked out, that's all capacity for milk. If the calf nurses and that udder still, in the beginning, you may have some edema in an udder for a couple of weeks. That's okay. But I'm talking, 60 days in, if that udder looks like it's full all the time, that's all just meat and tissue. There's no capacity for milk in that cow. So in this one, our score is 88. So now if you go to the next thing, we went through those 5 traits. There's 34 different traits. It tells me this cow, don't hit confirm, is 87, very good in strength, very good in breed characteristics, excellent in rump. She's good, plus better than average in mobility, and she's very good in mammary system. So I can look at a piece of paper without a picture and tell you exactly what that cow looks like. Because if I was going to write that out as a score, it would look like this. This cow's 87 points, very good in conformation. She was what? Very good. And on a piece of paper, it looked like this. Very good. V. I think the other one was what? Plus. And then it was V. So if I know my 5 categories over here, I can say that cow's very good in strength, very good in breed characteristics. Rump's her weak point. She's only good plus. She's very good in mobility, or excellent mobility, or whatever I got here. They're very good in mammary. I can tell you what that cow looks like and not even look at a picture. Why is this important? How many of you guys, especially go buy cows, and you look at a pedigree? Hopefully, most people are looking at pedigrees. What do we have on a pedigree? Now, some guys do more intensive research. I'm not knocking that. And I'm not saying don't do your research. But we've got a bunch of pictures.
Family history.
It's not a history, though. That's my argument. I got some family portraits.
Wait, that's a bit.
Yeah. From when, though? That cow might have been taken at 5 years old, and she's 15. What does she look like today? Right? So I'm looking at that. What if I had that same pedigree that looked like this, but I had, this cow scored 88, this one was 92, this is 91. This cow's, 85 as a 2-year-old out of a 92-point dam, but her grand dam was 79 and the bull was, 68. I have way more information to make a decision. If I'm going to a ring and buying a heifer, and I know there's 3 generations of excellent conformation behind this heifer, I'm going to make that bet at the casino that the calf I'm looking at will probably follow that trend. I'm willing to spend more money. Why is it even more important? In the Longhorn game, the bull situation is we kind of a crapshoot. We have no data whatsoever other than this bull is out of this family history, or this bull won a futurity. I don't really care if a bull won a futurity. That tells me what he looks like. It has no bearing on what he makes. I want to know what he makes. If I score 15 hydro daughters, and all of a sudden we see the hydro daughters are all 88 to 92 in mammary, what does that tell me? Hydro fixes udders. I can make a breeding decision with information. To take pony up, you score pony up daughters. All of a sudden we start to see a pattern. Now, is there maternal influence in that? Absolutely. I'm not knocking that. But right now we have absolutely no information. So if all of a sudden we've got actual information on what these bulls are producing, we can actually make smart decisions. The goal should be try to get an excellent cow, or there is no perfect cow, but if we're not chasing to get better, we're just maintaining what we have. I was never put on this earth to maintain what I had. I thought it was to improve, right? So again, what are different things that are going to do? So the future of this is you can make informed decisions, or some of our herds may look a certain way because we look like a certain type of cows, but now we know, hey, I got great color in my herd, like Greg, right? I mean, typically you got great colored cows and this and that, and I'm just making stuff up here. I'm not saying because I haven't looked at Greg's herd in a while, but maybe
I do that.
yeah. No, I know the color side of it, but maybe Greg's cows, if you start to see a pattern that, hey, the feet and legs could use a little work, now he knows, hey, I got to find a bull that's out of a really good foot and leg family. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I can make those up, keep what I already have, but improve the weak spots. Does that make sense? So again, these cows it's not a one-time thing. Typically your cow, if you get a very good 85 2-year-old, that's a really good 2-year-old. I mean, max out on a 2-year-old would never be excellent because she hasn't proven herself. There is no excellent cow that only calves once. I'm going to tell you that right now. I want to see 3 or 4 calves through that cow. So there's max scores at different ages, but if I scored that cow again as a 3-year-old, more than likely she would be 88. As another calf, she'd probably be excellent. I want to stack excellent. Why is this important? We ran horn tip forever. Why? Everybody can do it. Take a measure. Anybody can read tape measure. We love color. Why? Everybody can look at a cow and say she's pretty. You'll say that's a good cow. What makes her a good cow? Right? So when everybody can do something, that'll drive the market. I can do this. To me, it's second nature because I've done it so long. For new people, it's not. So what I realized very early on is you guys go to a sale the first time, these pedigrees are on there, cows are coming in. What's a good cow? What's a bad cow? I've seen cows that I wouldn't own and sell for ridiculous amounts of money. Not knocking the cow or the person. I wouldn't buy her because I could see this, this, and this, and I knew what it would look like in 5 years, right? So if that information's there and you can go in on a pedigree and it's first time at a sale, you can say, oh, maybe my budget's trying to get very good cows. Maybe it's good plus cow. I want a little cow's a little better than average. I'm going to spend a little more on this cow because this information's there. Ideally, what would happen is we'd get more reliable information on bulls in the long run. But in the short term, what we're going to create is a value for cows that are vastly undervalued. Everybody, I would assume, in this room has a cow that may not be 90 inches of horn, but she's probably one of your best producers on the farm. Then there's no value to it because everybody can't, the tape measure. What's better? Is it a 90-inch cow that scores 78 confirmation or an 80-inch cow that's 92? That's a matter of opinion. But what I do know is the holy grail is a 90-inch cow that scores 90 in confirmation. If I can find that, I've covered it all, right? So this is what we're putting together. We've been working on a couple of years, and now it's just filling the database. Scoring cows, getting information. Some cows are going to do very well. Some You may think it's your best cow, but there's a couple flaws. Again, it's not saying the cow is bad. It's just saying, here's what needs to be fixed. At the end, we all want 90 plus point cows, right? Now, maybe you don't. That's awesome. Do what you've been doing. That's fine. Some people, may have left the room today because they didn't really like what was being talked about. That's fine. I don't care. I'm taking this system that I use automatically and giving it to people so we can improve the breed. And if you want to actually improve the breed of your cows, the longevity, fertility, those types of things, it all comes down to functional conformation. The horn game's played. You're not moving horn 30 inches in the next 10 years like we have been doing. The skulls can't take it. It's gonna, so we're coming to the end of that. What's the next evolution? Right here. And I'm not saying that lightly. I just know that's logic. There used to be, years ago, what made a 90-inch cow valuable? What was that?
Very few.
There were very few of them. There's 1,000 of them now. What separates this 90-inch cow from this 90-inch cow? This right here. How are they built? Do they transmit? See, I can see transmissibility on paper if I have multiple generations. 90 makes 90, makes 93. It's not 78, makes 90, makes 62. So now we can start to identify a lot of things with data. Does that make sense? That's kind of all I got. I want to keep it quick so you can play with it.
That one. So everybody take a good look at that cow. Yeah, good vision of her.
How many of you would want that cow in your herd?
Yeah. And this isn't a trick question. I just want you to visualize this. Now I'll go to the next one. Take a real good look at that cow. Me personally, them cows would score close together. They don't look nothing the same, right? I mean, there's little differences about them. They're about the same age. They're older cows that have had several calves. They got great bags for their age. That one's a little broader, got a little more balance to it, but that's an old school straight Butler cow. She's old. It's old school, but the longevity's there. But the point of this is, you can have two cows that score very similar. That maybe I like the bottom one better, but maybe Mike likes the top one better, and there's nothing wrong with that, because they're strong in certain areas and they're weaker. On her, the only thing I really flaw her on is she's really straight-legged back here.
Yeah, your bottom cow is a more
feminine
cow, not as much capacity, but she's way better in the foot, leg, in the rear.
Yeah, she's a little shorter from hook to pin, but it hasn't affected her udder attachment or ability for her udder to hold up. So these are two old cows. If you scroll back up to this, not that one. Well, we can do that one while you're there, but so this is a cow I really like. So she's really deep in the back, and then she kind of narrows up to the front, but she's got a lot of capacity. She's got a good spring of rib. Love her face structure, her horn set, her feet and legs. You can't see them because of the grass. But the reason I had these pictures on here is you can see I would fix that hook to pin angle. It's a little too steep for me, and her tail starts too close to the hook bone. It starts way up here. I would like that to start back here and then go back. So those are the things. If you look at the cow, she's got a lot of things I really love about her, and she's 3 years old in that picture, just had her second calf. So, but I would fix that. I'm not going to take her to the sale barn. I'm not going to throw her away. She's probably one of my more expensive heifers if somebody wanted to buy it. But she's not perfect. But that's okay, because I got a bull that's going to fix that. If you scroll to this one, this is a great example of a heifer I really love. I love this heifer. But if you look here, she doesn't have a lot of heel depth. Her toes are long. She's 2 years old. This cow's feet are going to have to be trimmed. She's on the same pasture, the same feed, the same conditions as all my other ones in that pen. Those are the worst feet. So to me, that's genetic. I can see it in the structure. Her leg structure, it's hard to see because she was walking in that picture, but her leg structure isn't bad. It's just the way the hoof is made. So I would dock her there. if you look at her face, she's got a pinched nose. Her nostrils are wider than the rest of her face. In the Longhorn standard, the nostrils should be about the width of the eyes from the nostrils all the way to the eyes. And that's what he was talking about, capacity. Capacity of forage intake, capacity of oxygen. Oxygen is what makes everything work. Your feed utilization, milk production, you have to have oxygen. So her nose is a little pinched. It's wider here than it is back here. That's a flaw. But there's no way I'll take that cow to the sale barn because there's other things I really like on her. She's got great depth all the way through. She's 2 years, just turned 2 in this photo, and is nursing her first calf. So if you look at the back, he was talking about tail angle, or tail where the tail is, in hook to pin angle. When you first look at that, you think she's got a nice rear end. It's kind of nice and square almost, but she's got way too much slope from her hook to pin. The way her tail is set is hiding it. So if I overfed that heifer, you'd never know that hook to pin angle was wrong because the tail would fill in and hide all that. But I would like to fix that. I would same thing. I would like this to do this a little bit, which would force that tail this way a little bit. Just tilt it. If I scored that heifer in my pasture as a 2-year-old, she would probably be about an 80. Because as she has her second, third, fourth, fifth calf, I want to see if she breaks down or if she maintains or improves. If she improves, she could probably end up being an 84-point cow. 85 maybe even. But at that age, I don't know. She's got too many little flaws that could either maintain, improve, or break down. So that's kind of what the point of this is when you look at these cows. Like, I bought a bull, and we looked at all his daughters the other night, took just several pictures and looked at them, and their hook bones are a little bit low. So that should fix this. You know, they were more level, right? The hook and pin was like more of a level angle. Not bad, but they were a little, not enough angle. So, and it was consistent with that bull. So I'm going to use that bull on heifers like this. His feet were perfect. Everything else I liked on him, but I want to kind of straighten that out a little bit. His tail sets were right. So that's how I picked my bull, because if you see, I picked 2 of my favorite heifers. Both of them had that flaw. Which means if you look at my ones that aren't my favorites, I bet you they got that flaw too. So I needed a bull to fix that. I'm not taking any into the sale barn. They're not bad cows. If you come over and point that out, I'm not going to get mad at you. Like, I agree. So, and that's how we improve the breed. We get better as breeders is we can take somebody saying there's a flaw in your cow without getting offended.
Do the dams of those have those flaws?
So I didn't want to get political. I know exactly where them traits come from, and I knew they were going to be there when I used them. But they had other traits I wanted.
Okay.
So when I do a mating, I've already analyzed, like Mike said, I've been doing this a while. Anybody knows me, I've burned up 5 trucks and 2 trailers driving to people's ranches just seeing what genetics produce what. So in my brain, I already know, what families will strongly produce what traits. And so when I found an animal and said, yeah, it's got a few flaws, but I need these traits, I'm going to use it. And then I'm going to fix it on the next generation, or maybe two generations. But I wanted to get that trait. I used a bull that was sickle hawked. He was sickle hawked with a bad tail set, but he had the color I wanted, the small ears I wanted, the horn shape I wanted. He had 4 out of the 5 things I wanted. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use him, and then I'm going to find a bull that also has, pretty strong in them 4 that he brought in, but is really strong in where that one's weak. And this, I'm doing that in my head. We're trying to find a way to put that on paper. So if somebody gets in and only been in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or whatever, and they can't drive across the country and go to somebody's ranch that has 6 generations of cows on their place and see it, that you can just look in this app, look the cow up and say, hey, this one's strong in these 5 categories. It's a little weak in this one. And then match the numbers up. And we don't have nothing like that in our industry right now. And I feel that's why we lose so many new breeders. Because they try it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, feel like they're failing. They can't get the information they want. They don't know why they're failing, why their cows aren't calving, why their calves are skinny, and they can't find answers. So all this is just information based. It's not saying cows have to look a certain way. My cow don't have to look like your cow, but it gives you the information so you can build the cow you want. So that's about all I have. This is our first go around with kind of a presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate Josh and the Great Lakes for letting us have this time. Mike, Andrew, and myself all enjoy talking about cattle. If anybody ever that's not here wants to call us and talk about this, anytime. But I think we'll wrap this up and then the group can ask questions.